Hello and welcome back. This is Numbers chapter 18. And if you've read the headings, you may have thought, well, this doesn't really apply to me because it says duties of priest and Levites. Well, we are the priest in the kingdom. So we are the sanctuary. This talks about us and what we're going to be held responsible for. So Numbers chapter 18 is important, even though we want to put all this in the past and say it doesn't apply to us. I'm going to show you how it does. And remember, what we're learning here are patterns and principles that God wants us to see. And He repeats numerous times. So hopefully we learn them over a long period of time. So that's Numbers chapter 18. Let's get started. We're going in the complete Jewish Bible because the wording is just a lot more accurate. So Adonai said to Aaron, you, your sons, and your father's family line will be responsible for anything that goes wrong in the sanctuary. You and your sons with you will be responsible for anything wrong in your service as Kohanim, that high priest. But you are to bring your kinsmen, the tribe of Levi, along with yourselves to work together with you and to help you, you and your sons with you, and when you are there before the tent of meeting. They are to be at your disposal and perform all kinds of tasks related to the tent, only they are not to come near the holy furnishing or the altar. This real quick. They will work together with you in your duties related to the tent of meeting, whatever the service in the tent may be, but an unauthorized person is not to come near you. You are to take charge of all the holy things and the altar, so that there will no longer be anger against the people of Israel. I myself have taken your kinsmen, the Levites, from among the people of Israel, and they have been given as a gift to Adonai, your son. Given as a gift to Adonai for you, so that you can perform the service in the tent of meeting. You and your sons with you will exercise your prerogatives and duties as Kohanim. That means priest. I think I said high priest, but it's the priest. In regard to everything having to do with the altar and within the curtain, I entrust the service required of Kohanim to you. The unauthorized person who tries to perform it is to be put to death. Adonai said to Aaron, I myself have put you in charge of the contributions given to me. Everything consecrated by the people of Israel I have given and set aside for you and your sons. This is to be a perpetual law. Here is what is to be yours of the especially holy things taken from the fire, every offering they make, that is, every grain offering, sin offering, and guilt offering of theirs that they turn over to me, I will be especially holy for you and your sons. You are to eat it in an especially holy place. Every male may eat it. It will be set apart for you. Also yours is the contribution the people of Israel give in the form of wave offerings. I have given these to you, your sons and your daughters with you. This is a perpetual law. Everyone in your family who is clean may eat it. All the best of the olive oil, wine, and grain, the first portion of what they give to Adonai, I have given to you. The first produce to turn ripe of all that is in the land, which they bring to Adonai, is to be yours. Every clean person in your family may eat it. Everything in Israel which has been consecrated unconditionally is to be yours. Everything that comes first out of the womb of all living things which they offer to Adonai, whether human or animal, will be yours. However, the firstborn of a human being you must redeem, and the firstborn of an unclean beast you are to redeem. The sum to be paid for redeeming anyone a month old or over is to be 5 shekels of silver, 2 ounces, as you value it, using the sanctuary shekel. But the firstborn of an ox, sheep, or goat you are not to redeem. They are holy. You are to splash their blood against the altar and make their fat go up in smoke as an offering made by fire, as a fragrant aroma for Adonai. Their meat will be yours, just like the breast that is waved and the right thigh. They will be yours. All the contributions of holy things which the people of Israel offer to Adonai I have given to you, your sons and daughters with you. This is a perpetual law, an eternal covenant of salt before Adonai for you and your descendants with you. Adonai said to Aaron, you are not to have any inheritance or portion in their land. I am your portion and inheritance among the people of Israel. To the descendants of Levi, I have given the entire tenth of the produce collected in Israel. It is their inheritance and payment for the service they render in the tent of meeting. From now on, the people of Israel are not to approach the tent of meeting, so that they will not bear the consequences of their sin and die. Only the Levites who are to perform the service in the tent of meeting, and they will be responsible for whatever they do wrong. This is to be a permanent regulation throughout all your generations. They are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel, because I have given to the Levites as their inheritance the tenths of the produce which the people of Israel set aside as a gift to Adonai. This is why it was said to them that they are to have no inheritance among the people of Israel. Adonai said to Moshe, tell the Levites, when you take from the people of Israel the tenth of the produce which I have given you from them as your inheritance, you are to set aside from it a gift for Adonai, 1/10 of the tenth. The gift you set aside will be accounted to you as if it were grain from the threshing floor and grape juice from the wine vat. In this way, you will set aside a gift for Adonai from all your tents that you receive from the people of Israel, and from these tents that you are to give Aaron the Cohen the gift set aside for Adonai. From everything given to you, you are to set aside all that is due Adonai, the best part of it, its holy portion. Therefore, you are to tell them, when you set aside from it its best part, it will be accounted to the Levites as if it were grain from the threshing floor and grape juice from the wine vat. You may eat it anywhere, you and your households, because it is your payment in return for your service in the tent of meeting. Moreover, because you have set aside from the best parts, you will not be committing any sin because of it. You are not to profane the holy things of the people of Israel, or you will die. There you go. That made perfect sense, right? Sometimes these chapters get a little long and we start to get where we start to kind of wander off in our mind and we lose track. And what you want to do in that moment is just stop and say, God, I ultimately really want to understand this. And I want you to help me do that. Give me the wisdom and the patience to do that. And you'll be surprised at how gracious and loving God is, that he starts to open your mind and heart to things. So don't just get frustrated and say, well, I've always been told I'm bad at text or reading or memory or whatever it is. Ask God to open up your heart, because that's ultimately where this is going. It becomes part of who you are. That's what we want God's word to do. So it's up to the tribe of Levi to guard the wilderness tabernacle. That's their job. So if somebody gets by them, and it is the Levite who bears the guilt and the punishment, they're put to death. So your instructions are kill or be killed, basically. You don't let anybody get past you. It is the priest's responsibility to keep an eye on the regular Levites, the non-priest. So these are from the line of Aaron, are the priest. But all Levites help in service. They're all there, but they're not called priests. So the priest responsibility is to make sure that they do only what God has authorized them to do, to not do more than they're supposed to do. So an army of Levite guards guard the tabernacle. They had authority to kill 100%. So in the New Testament, we'll hear of the arrest of Jesus. This temple guard was composed of Levites, not Roman soldiers. They're the ones that actually arrested him originally. So most of this is intended to be done after they conquer Canaan, all of these rules and stuff. So priests are exempt from paying a tithe. The regular Levites were not. They got a tithe, so to speak, from Israel, and then they were to pay their tithe off of that. So once the Levites have given their tithe, they may remove the remaining portion from the temple and take it and eat it anywhere they want. They're leaving that, showing their obedience and gratitude. So the holy status of the food was removed by means of tithing. This is beneficial because they would not have been able to feed their families with this food if there wasn't a way to take it out of the temple. If it stayed holy, it had to stay there. And so God provided a way that if you're obedient and you do it his way, you can take it and feed your family. So holiness is more about our personal status and a condition. It's a status bestowed by God and God alone. No one else can make me holy or anything else, only God. So both holiness and uncleanliness is contagious. We talked about this in some previous videos. Both holiness and uncleanliness can be dangerous because if you contract holiness and you're unauthorized to have it, that could result in your death. Uncleanliness could result in you losing your relationship with God, the closeness to it. So, not losing your salvation, don't run off and say, I said that, losing your closeness to it. When I sin, my relationship suffers. It's pretty simple. So, after Aaron was finished or had finished his ritual duties, he must wash himself, or the holiness of the high priest garment could be transmitted to his common garment, like if he just took it off and changed. So that's why he has to wash first. The principle is whatever is holy must never be used for a common purpose. That's why we're not supposed to be used for common purposes, because we're holy now. So whatever is made holy must stay within the tabernacle. Whatever is common must not be offered to God or brought into a holy place, or it will acquire holiness and must be destroyed because it was not meant to be holy. So we talked a lot about common, clean, and unclean. Didn't mean good or bad. It just meant a status of how God has deemed it: clean, unclean, holy, or common. And you can go back and hear that in some previous videos. But so listen to Ezekiel 46:20. It says this: and he said to me, this is the place where the priest shall boil the guilt offering and the sin offering, and where they shall bake the grain offering, in order that they may not bring them out into the outer court to transmit holiness to the people. And then in Romans 11:16, it says this: and if the first piece of dough be holy, the lump is also. And if the root be holy, the branches are too. Paul doesn't even bother to kind of explain this point because most of his audience was Jews. They understood the portion thing and the tithe and holiness and how that was transmitted. So Paul didn't put any effort into that. They understood the Torah principle of holiness, uncleanliness, and how it can be transmitted. So he didn't have to go into much detail there. In Acts 7:33, it says, but the Lord said to him, take off the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. Because the holiness of the holy ground would have transferred to Moses' sandals, and then whatever those sandals contacted would contact holiness. So he was teaching a principle at that moment, but he didn't expand it until he got into further chapters. And that's what the Bible is. It expands those patterns and principles to, you're like, oh, you first mentioned this long time ago, God, and now you're finally explaining it to me, or I'm finally understanding it, I guess would be a better way to put it. So because if we look at Zechariah 14:21, it says, and every cooking pot in Jerusalem and in Judah will be holy to the Lord of hosts, and all who sacrifice will come and take of them and boil in them, and there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts on that day. What does that mean? Well, when you cook sacrificial meat, the pot becomes holy. So this is a time when holiness is universal among Israel. They all have it and share it. And every Israelite who uses that pot is entitled to holiness. So it's okay if that holiness is transmitted because it's authorized. So holiness has aspects that we really don't know anything about. We're still studying. Very, very little do we know already. So the concept of transmissible holiness and uncleanliness is behind the reason that Paul tells men not to join themselves with prostitutes, because holiness can be transmitted, and we're made holy by a relationship with Yeshua, Jesus the Christ, Messiah. So holiness can be transmitted in the joining together of a holy male with an unholy female. So because the uncleanliness of the prostitute can be transmitted to the holy male, that uncleanliness can defile God's holiness. So that's in him and he can defile it. So that's what Paul was teaching. But most of them understood that concept, so he didn't have to go into too much detail about it. in 1 Corinthians 7:13, and it says, "And a woman who has an unbelieving husband and he consents to live with her, let her not send her husband away. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified," meaning separated for God, made holy, "through his wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified through her believing husband. For otherwise your children are unclean, but now they are holy." So it would have been easy to say God sees the marriage of a believer and an unbeliever as legal. That would have just been so much easier than what we just read. Instead, he used some understood principle to explain the unbeliever conferred sanctification. The believer conferred sanctification on the unbeliever by influencing them. Now, I'm not saying that being around somebody saves them. I'm not saying that. What he's saying is that we can transmit our holiness and sanctification. We can lead them to a relationship with God because we're planting those seeds. So, what biblical principle is at play here? Paul says this is an authorized union between a man and a woman. This is a marriage in the manner God prescribes between a man and a woman. One possible explanation is the holiness of the believing spouse will be transmitted, and the children may also contract holiness. And Paul apparently sees this as a blessing. So it's kind of like it's not necessarily a guarantee, but he's saying it's way better than separating those two and then those children never getting an opportunity to have transmitted holiness towards them. So the concept of holiness has been way watered down by me and most of the modern church. But do you know holiness can be dangerous too? Where only some people are authorized to have holiness. That's why we're learning the Old Testament. Faith is easier in the black and white stage than when we study more, because then we're responsible for more. We got to ask more questions and we got to behave differently. This is why we must come to Jesus, because in the beginning, as little children, we have to be willing to begin with the basics and just accept them. And then we're expected to advance. We're supposed to learn more wisdom and understanding from God, not necessarily people. I know I'm teaching, but hopefully God's the one that's opening up your heart and mind to do this. Then, it's a whole lot easier to look holy than it is to be holy, because you realize, man, I can just tell people I'm holy, but actually being holy is really hard. The advent of Yeshua did not change how holiness operates. It is our job as disciples of Yeshua to see to it that his holiness that is within this sanctuary, that is a body, is protected. And every time I join or come into contact with or come into union with something that is unclean or unholy, I'm bringing that unholiness onto God, or I'm transmitting my holiness onto something God didn't intend for it to have. And that both of those, the penalty is death. You don't want to be that way. Now, this isn't about guilt. It's not about, oh my gosh, I've done everything wrong. It's about start to think now, how can I change my heart and mind to protect the holiness that God has given me, has made me, that has deemed me. And that gratitude is where we want to live. So God bless. Love God. Love people. Change the world.